At its core, self-determination proposes that people thrive and perform at their best when three basic psychological needs are met.
When you were saying about those three elements, it made me think about how volatile sport can be.
Whether it was developing the Football Collective, a global network of football researchers, or moving the ASD from 70 members to 900 members globally, or FIFA going around the world with an incredible team that are just fighting to help people and make things better in the game to try and create opportunities.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Pundit Performance Podcast in association with award-winning sports technology and innovation company Genius Sports. In this 5-part series, I aim to speak to the people that sit at the unique intersection between the boardroom and the dressing room, providing practical insights regardless of which side of the line you're on. From university corridors to the boardrooms of football clubs, Dr. Dan Parnell has built a career at the intersection of sport, business and research. As an academic, CEO, technical expert and consultant, he's uniquely placed to talk about what drives high performance and what hinders it in the business of football and beyond. Dan, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on board.
Thanks, Rich.
You're an academic, a CEO, a technical expert and a consultant in the game. How did it all begin and what key experiences have connected those worlds for you?
What it started with is obviously just like a love for football, which probably many people have. My granddad used to take my dad and his brother to Everton, Liverpool and Tranmere games on rotation. And then they were allowed to pick which team. So my uncle chose Tranmere and my dad chose Everton, which was my granddad's club. So my dad wasn't as democratic. So he just took me to Everton when I was 2. So football's always given me an access to friends, to support, to ideas, to all kinds of things that have changed my life really positively. And as I went through, I just started coaching at 17 just because I was still playing at amateur and representing my county, and that's Merseyside and Cheshire and whatnot. I just started coaching, was inspired by coaching. I went to university, but there was no real plan there. I was just lucky that I was able to go to uni, the first in the family. Went to uni, didn't really enjoy it at all. Didn't find like me place there until the last 6 months, and somehow pulled it out the bag the last 6 months, which is ridiculous. Did not want to or ever envisage to stay at a university, but then seeing a job that was to and do some research around physical activity, and I could do the job, and then fortunate enough to be offered the opportunity to do it. And then again, always no plan, just try to focus on doing a good job. And the rest is kind of like, I'm not going to say serendipity because it's been some really low points, some really hard points, traumatic for myself, for my family. But I just worked really hard and tried to find good people, spend more time with them, learn from them, try to be better myself, and to work at lots of different clubs, different governmental organisations, different private organisations, different types of companies. And yeah, just been hard working, been really fortunate, and just tried to do some good. And I would say I've focused on, and Rich, I hope this connects, is try to be right by people. And I got a lot of that from my dad and his upbringing and my mum's upbringing for me, and then helping others without some strategic intent that they're going to have to provide something back. Focused on that, and I found other people that want to do it. And actually there's a lot of education, a lot of learning, a lot of work that I do is all focused on trying to support people in their roles to either be a better leader or to help develop their organisations, enhance their organisations. So a lot of it has come full circle. But there was no strategic plan. Just love football, tried to work hard, tried to have as much fun as possible, tried to survive having a family and kids very young. Hopefully that's a good insight into the career, but not a strategic plan to be an executive or anything of that sort, or an academic at all.
So, I mean, listening to what you were saying there, it very much centers around people and, an organic journey. Is there a moment that you can pinpoint that sort of was the catalyst for you having this multi-dimensional career path in sport?
I would say there wasn't a key point, as to they're just embedded amongst good people, good values. And I think that shapes you unintentionally. And things that really value and stick, when you're really being challenged on things, that's what gets you through and shows like a bit of a North Star or guide for who you are and what you want to be.
I'm taking away from that sport being the great connector, plus people, values, and your upbringing. Apart from all those things kind of interwoven, what's, from your experience, shaped your philosophy then on kind of what high performance truly means in sport, kind of both on the pitch, but across sports organizations in general?
So I can flip it really quickly because everything I've described, I would say, after I finished my PhD in 2014, I found something called network theory. And for me, this helped me understand everything that I could see, but I couldn't join the dots with. So whether it was in football, high performance, or life, whether it's an individual, team, or organizational perspective, or operational, the core strategic, network theory just helped build that understanding. And I guess for me, whether it was doing my PhD at Everton, whether it was developing the Football Collective, a global network of football researchers, or moving the ASD from 70 members to 900 members globally, or FIFA going around the world with an incredible team that are just fighting to help people and make things better in the game, to try and create opportunities for other people like me and my colleagues to see the benefits of football. Like network theory helped me really join the dots.
I know you mentioned all the various organizations you're affiliated with, but, from a personal level, how did you bring that to life yourself?
If I picked one to focus on for this, because there's many, and maybe I'll talk about others as we go through where relevant, understanding network theory was just crucial for finding some kind of like meaningful but sustainable career. So I think high performance goes hand in hand with that. So within network theory, there's this concept called embeddedness, and it highlights how our decisions, behaviors, opportunities are shaped by the social networks we're part of. So it's a little bit like the people around us influence what we think and what we do, but it also relates to our success. So that embeddedness was quite important for me. At the same time, there's a social economist called Mark Benevetta, and he had a theory on this idea of the strength of weak ties. So it's that our most valuable opportunities actually come from the more distant or casual contacts that we have, not by our closest circle. So these distant casual contacts connect us to new ideas, more diverse thinking, and probably lots of unseen or unknown opportunities. So together, embeddedness and strength of weak ties, just two concepts of network theory, these challenge the myth of the lone genius or you being able to do it all on your own. That's quite encouraged, hard work, graft. If you want it, you can make it happen on your own. Well, network removed that, and it helped me understand how much other people played in my career, in any meaningfulness, any slight bit of success was that not down to me, it was down to others too. I guess that mindset of trying to say, well, we need to help other leaders around being that openness, connectivity, collaboration. So if they want to be successful, they've got to nurture this close, embedded network of people to be able to access a broader, weaker ties that can actually help make them successful. And for me, that was about learning, innovation, trying to create and access transformational moments in people's careers. And I've studied it myself. I've read lots of books on it. And for me, it's like you can't get away from it. If you were going to say to me, Dan, I want to start learning about it, I would say there's two books, maybe in this order. One's called Connected, and that is just about understanding how our behaviors, emotions, and our decisions are influenced by the people around us. Not just the first degree, but the second and third degree. And the second one, which like I really loved because it uses a bit of sport in there too, is called the Formula. So it's by Albert Laszlo Barabasi, if I've pronounced it correctly. I've never actually heard it said. And he reveals that success is driven less by individual performance and more by the strength and structure of your networks. And he draws on concepts from the art world. He draws on concepts from sport, and it just blows your mind. And it shows how important we hear sound bites now in memes and Instagram. Surround yourself with good people. I believe in it fundamentally as a lifestyle, as a person, as a professional, that the people around you influence what you think and what you do. So we need to be really careful about who we spend our time with. And for me, that's fundamental. And then so many layers to unpacking that strategically from a learning perspective.
I'm sure everyone will start looking up for those books that you mentioned, and I can see us dipping in and out of this network theory learning that you've talked about throughout the next half hour, 40 minutes. And I kind of want to shift the conversation onto then high performance beyond the pitch. And I'm sure this all sort of is interwoven. You've worked across governing bodies, clubs, in academia, like we've mentioned. What do you actually see, perhaps with network theory in mind, that actually goes to delivering high performance outcomes in sporting organizations?
Yeah, I think when we talk about delivering outcomes or whatever winning looks like in any particular organization, I think when you really get to the right platform to speak to people, they're quite honest. So they'll probably say success is a result of like doing some really good work and a bit of luck. And then other times luck plays a greater role in that success, sometimes than what people admit, or sometimes than what people remember when they're writing books or reflecting on things. But in the most consistent and probably sustainable environments that I've seen, that I've worked in, the focus is always relentlessly on doing the actual work, doing the foundations, doing all the things. So starting with having a clear vision, a mission, informs a strategic plan, but then comes quality leadership. A big thing of what stands out for me is about leadership development. So whether it's football or society, quite frankly, we've probably got a noticeable vacuum in how people lead and the quality of our leadership. And it's not necessarily down to individuals failing. It's just the natural response to an abnormal environment in which they're operating, and maybe a reflection of football environment, society, the ecosystem. So high pressured, short term, reactive. It's hard to go into those environments and be sustainable, strategic, and long term. It's just so we probably need to invest. This is a bigger discussion on values based leadership, where people develop to think long term, to connect, influence, to build trust, to build relationships, have aligned action, still deliver, but also with the short and long term in mind. And I think we have to start by getting that leadership culture right first and foremost, within good governance, good ownership, good strategy, and then build from there. I think in the places I've experienced, I'm proud to work at FIFA within the technical leadership diploma that we run, because we're trying to do genuine world leading leadership development across so many different cultures and contexts. It's really challenging to create these transformational moments, but we've seen already our first couple of editions, we're changing people's lives, not just enhancing MAs. And that's down for me for having a really clear strategy and then really good leadership. So from our head of technical leadership, and then an outstanding team that are really fighting at work and at relationships. So that context, like, I feel like I'm part of high performance in action, away from the action of a football match, but really supporting people that can change the ecosystem of football in their nation, for people from Hungary to Japan to Ecuador, and really try and help and support their game. It's amazing.
I mean, the cultural diversity that you're dealing with there, I think is fascinating. I'm taking away that people and leadership qualities being a key thing here, short and long-term focus. Where do you think people in sport then get it wrong with those things in mind? What sort of blind spots do you see?
That's a really tricky question, that, Rich. And I know clubs are doing some incredible work, but it's really difficult to speak collectively about these guys' professions, livelihoods, the passions. And in some cases, this is the world. So any observations I make for this bit is with caution, that it's not blanket. There's some incredible work going out. I guess for me, I always start with what is the ownership and what is the governance of an organization. I think we can come back to this, but I think that's fundamental. But firstly, some owners, investors, they've just not had enough support in developing the vision and subsequent strategy. The consequence of this is then you have this lack of strategic direction. It results in inconsistent decision making. There's misaligned recruitment. There's no North Star guiding them or the organization. So we can summarize it by, like, you end up chasing short-term solutions because you're not embedded in a long-term strategy or thinking. So whether it's recruitment, leadership, culture, you just then, without that strategy, you just become fixated on the here and now, and you miss out on some of the deeper structural or more strategic work into the long run. So it just creates instability. And I've certainly felt it and seen it within different organizations, different clubs. Everyone has seen it. And when you don't have it, it's like poetry in motion. It's incredible just to not experience it. And that, even when that isn't high performance, it probably feels like it because it's not such poor performance.
Mm-hmm.
Like practically and culturally, from like trying to operate as a practitioner or anyone in a club, like when you haven't got these right, there's loads of little things, like even the way you're onboarded and the way you're recruited, it just undermines everything you're just trying to do. You can't get alignment. You can't really adapt. You can't really thrive. It's just a missed opportunity. So until that bit of the organization, ownership, governance is professional, it's serious, it's logical, then we haven't got an opportunity really to make much long-term success further down the organization.
And I think that's probably applicable across lots of industries, right? With that kind of need for short-term success in mind, is there any kind of practical mechanisms or processes that you would advocate for that kind of allows ownership, leadership of sports organizations to kind of hit their desired outcomes, both in the short term and long term?
It'd be remiss for me to, like, because people will view me as having just a purely academic head on sometimes. And I hope some people see me as not just an academic to say it should be this, it should be that. But I think we all should be looking for like best practice and where it works. So I would say where I've seen good work, good high performance, it's been about probably been small and very effective teams that have high trust, communication, and then important for ownership is autonomy over their sphere of influence, their expertise. So for me, seeing what's happened at Liverpool, Brentford and Brighton in very different ways, like it's quite simply down to doing everything really, really well. Having good people, having good processes and some scope for innovation. A good way of framing this would be like the self-determination theory. So it's a psychological framework that explains what drives human motivation, well-being and performance. A good friend of mine who also happened to be a psychologist is Carl Line. So I work with him at FIFA. We help relate this to high performance better than anyone I've ever seen elsewhere over the past 20 years. And at its core, self-determination proposes that people thrive and perform at the best when three basic psychological needs are met. So these three core needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Competence is the need to feel capable, effective, and growing at what you do. And then relatedness is the sense of connection and belonging with others. So anyone listen to this, if you think about times when you've had all three of those things, you might have had one, maybe two, but to have all three, that is such an incredible feeling. So when leaders, coaches, or organizations get these things right, people are more likely to perform better under pressure, to be more creative and adaptable, and maybe think about the long term and look after the well-being as well. In contrast, and whilst we think about those examples, also think about environments that suppress these needs. So over-controlling, disconnected cultures. So lead to burnout, disengagement, short-term thinking. So high performance for me, it has to come back to leadership, has to come back to it.
When you were saying about those three elements, it made me think about how volatile sport can be. And whilst those three elements, if they're in place, probably provide people with a degree of certainty, which I guess we all quite like. Without them, you're living in a kind of volatile, uncertain space, and that gets uncomfortable. The kind of business of sport, the business of football then, as someone at the helm of the Association of Sporting Directors, the CEO, you're actively contributing to kind of national and international policy discussions, a bit like you've touched on with your work with FIFA. How are you seeing then football as a sporting business evolve?
That's a great question, Rich. And I'm thinking about it from a number of different ways, but ultimately I believe we're at a crossroads and people expect that crossroads to be like now this year, but I'm thinking like at a crossroads looking at like 20-year type periods, epochs. We've got so many things changing from the Club World Cup introduction to global geopolitics and their clear role within sport, government influence within football, the rise of investor groups which we're still now just beginning to take for granted, but actually it's relatively new. And then multi-club ownership groups. So I think we know there's loads of unknowns for the future, but at some point, like, I think something's got to change. So the door's opened, like, difficult to close it now. So football has always been a business, but to this extent and level, it's fascinating and worrying to watch and also to participate in. It's challenging to make sense of, okay, what does this look like and what is right for different stakeholders in the game. At some point, there will need to be a recalibration. I don't know when, I don't know what that exactly looks like, but I imagine at some point soon, there'll be challenges across national, international, legal and financial frameworks. There'll be lots of lawyers involved. It'll be complex. There'll be tribunals, there'll be deals done behind closed doors. There'll be deals thrashed out in public, but a decision will probably be made both in the courtroom and in the boardrooms. I imagine it will be messy and there'll be a lot of unsatisfied stakeholders at some point in the near future.
I mean, that's a super valuable insight, and I think it aligns very closely to commentary I've heard from a guy called Roger Mitchell, who talks about, football not being an asset class because it's so tribal, and European football is very different to the sports ecosystem in the US. And I think the way you've described what might lie ahead aligns to that point of view quite clearly. Do you think there's anything that owners, leaders, like sporting directors, are not fully capitalizing on at this moment in time?
I think from an owner perspective, the best clubs come from good ownership, good governance, which results in good decision making and everything else we experience about a club. If you think about examples, Rich, without naming them, we don't get poor ownership and poor governance with great football and great football clubs. At the same time, you don't get amazing owners and good governance with really poor football clubs. It just doesn't exist. And we can apply different, poor governance, poor owners with good managers. It just doesn't work. It kind of goes hand in hand. So the critical thing for the entire football industry is to deal how football clubs are governed. Outside of dealing with that, what can we do then if we were in the game? I think it's two ways of maybe doing this. On a level, I can say, well, be critical thinkers, be high performers, be reflective, but that's all rubbish. They're just rubbish words that don't mean much to most people. Well, actually, what's this all about? Just think about what you're doing, what works, do some trial and error, keep innovating, but be reasonable and logical about it. So that's what we kind of got to do as practitioners. As leaders, we've got to really double down on being better leaders. And if we want to create some success for ourselves as leaders, the only option we have is to absorb as much as we can from the top, getting into that organization, fighting for decision-making power, fighting for resources, and protecting your staff with the most fight that you can possibly get away with to stay in the job. And then you give them an opportunity to deliver. You give your manager football. After all of it is about a great managers, coaches, backroom staff, and great players. And you get them right and give them space. Like, I believe you'll win games. So if we can get people above them to protect from the potential challenges above, then we have an opportunity. Without that, I think it's difficult. I know it's difficult.
We've probably got enough examples between us that we could talk about here, but we won't. Data collection, coaching software, tracking, officiating. So much technology, so little efficiency. But what if one intelligent system could do it all and unlock the full potential of your league's data and video? That's where Genius Sports comes in. From the Premier League to the NBA, leagues all over the world are deploying AI-powered Genius technology to capture and analyze data. To streamline operations, create richer performance insights, automate officiating, and power more immersive, data-driven broadcasts. Discover the new operating system for sport, brought to you by the world leader in AI and sports data. Learn more at www.geniussports.com/perform. Just moving the conversation towards academia, what kind of misunderstandings do you come across then when sort of academia, the football industry try and collaborate? You mentioned innovation. I'm curious to know, as somebody that's kind of had a foot in both camps, what do you see work well and what do you see work not so well?
I think just to lay it up, I believe my role as an academic, also working in the game with some responsibility, is try and create outstanding learning environments to translate, to create knowledge exchange, to create learning from different ways, not just from research, but peer to peer, club to club. So I think I have that role. And then outside of that academic role in football, I'm looking to try and protect clubs through capacity building so they can do this work themselves. There's many amazing research projects that exist to support industry challenges, from performance research to proof of concept for tech in clubs and the supply chain. And the question of misunderstanding, there's probably like a lack of knowledge on both sides to invest in the relationship. So especially academics. So we often have senior professors putting young PhDs into the football club environment without the soft skills to operate, live and survive in the football world. You will have definitely seen it, might have experienced it. I experienced it and then see it all the time. And then on the football side, we probably haven't built enough skills to like critically challenge and root out the good and bad ideas and the good and bad people. So this is not exclusive. Like, there's some incredible critical thinkers in football with PhDs from universities, and there's some who have got their own PhD from being in the game, thinking, challenging, testing, evolving, growing. So it's certainly not like a geek. I think there's some better researchers that have never read a research paper in football clubs because the way they think, the way they act, the way they lead and behave. But further, like, I think from the academic side, I think I've seen some outrageously poor investments in research, which really questions the governance around the decision making of what money is spent from football and whether it's for the good of the game. So a governing body recently has invested an incredible amount of money on a really limited research project. That it's a limited research team. It's a limited research idea. The outputs, if they come, I can't see how they'll ever impact the game. And having some critical insight or independent insight would have challenged that investment, but somehow it's got through and it's an incredible amount of money. I just think it's going to fund someone's professorial career, the PhD student, but it's not going to impact the game. And that really is unacceptable for me. And it's trying to find a way then of how you observe that and understand it. And two, how do you challenge that in the right way? So that's not about naming organizations and researchers, but it's about going to the right people and really challenging them about what they are doing and what their decision-making processes is. So I feel like there's a responsibility to do some of that, even though there isn't really, but I want that. I want that. I want to be known as someone who can just tell the truth and challenge in the right way, but not writing a tweet or a LinkedIn post or naming people. It's about just going to them and really challenging them and saying, are you open to being challenged? Are you open to having a discussion and sharing some understanding around this decision making? But more broadly in the industry, like, I think there's some obvious people or let's say cases just walking amongst us that are engaged in some dark leadership. Really good paper by colleagues from UCLan about dark leadership, which I loved. So it's usually a pseudo academic or former failed academic who build these ego-driven projects in clubs and organizations, and it's to their own end. They're just protecting their existence rather than really helping the game. Helping the game is one thing, but helping individuals in the club, helping the leaders that are investing and believing in them. So that I really find disappointing. But so what do? We've really got to support and showcase clubs who are doing great work and great people who are doing great work, but also build capacity in clubs to help them be critical. But they don't need a PhD or a degree to be critical. Just preparing them for questions and helping shape the network that they've got other people in to challenge what's going on. So, like, academia and football it's an incredible relationship that has seen so many benefits and has enhanced the game and enhanced academia. And academia is a whole industry within itself that, within the UK and arguably globally relies on football and performance and funding for research and job opportunities. So it goes hand in hand, but we need better custodians just overseeing that relationship. And there's no natural body that oversees that and governs that well enough. So in that space, we need to fight for the best practice and the best people.
You mentioned about supporting clubs. From a personal perspective then, Dan, what have you tried to do to ensure that the kind of meaningful research is taking place and is actually impactful on the game, impactful for clubs, rather than, this kind of dark leadership, pseudo research, as you called it? What have you found that you've been able to do to address that?
It started with me, I would say, well, one, I hope this is the case, and I hope people who listen to this who I've worked with can either agree with it or call me out on it and give me a phone call and say, no, it's not good enough. But my PhD at Everton was on understanding whether the projects that the charity delivered improved quality of life. And it quickly shifted then over a number of years into quality assurance and total quality management across the football club, working with the directors of the club and the charity. So it took quite a significant change. But the key part of that is that we didn't go in with just our research that we wanted to do. We wanted to go in to solve their problems. And it was an action research project that was problem based. And that has kind of fed into every piece of research that I've done pretty much has been problem based. I think more recently that I guess I've supported, whether it's been with colleagues at Birmingham University or Manchester Met, it's concerned people who are operating in performance departments in Premier League clubs, people who are working in multi-club ownership groups, in leadership positions on their strategy. It's been about player onboarding, what we can learn from football, but from observations and research in the NBA. So I'm fortunate that I can pick and choose out of the people that would like to work with me. I think beyond that and the work that I've done, I'm probably passionate about trying to understand just how things work. So if you say to me, Dan, how do we do this? I've just got some insight on it. And when I don't, whether it's about head coach recruitment, sporting director recruitment, staff recruitment, I've gone and found out and conducted my research projects, some published, some not. Outside of that, there was something that I set up in 2015 with a group of colleagues called the Football Collective. It was just about bringing football people, football researchers together, and then some policy people, some practitioners, some chief execs, just to discuss the game. But it wasn't about change in impacting the game. We did want that, but I didn't know how achievable it would be then. It was about bringing people together to have better research and better conversations for the future. Now, that still exists under the leadership of colleagues, including Dr. Paul Widder. That was big because I was a lone scholar at Manchester Met, not with a big network, but somehow created a 500-person network globally around football research. That was pretty special. I was really proud of that and love it. We've got a book series, we had special issues, lots of research papers, and we provided the support network for people that are having an impact on the game. Then with the Association of Sporting Directors, we've got this global network of 900 football leaders in different capacities, actually from chief exec to heads of recruitment to loan managers. I've got a gatekeeper responsibility now, not as an academic, but by trying to protect these guys. Each week I'll have people contact me, researchers that want to access the network, and I really want to give everyone access, but then that network would disappear really quickly. So I've got to really understand what the needs are of this such diverse group. So when the research projects come in, I can say, this is what we need to know. This is what we need more insight on. Are you up for it? Can you come and help us? So that shifts then. So when I do contact some of our sporting directors and say, can you speak to this guy? He's conducting research at Warwick University about strategy. They know I'm not wasting the time. They know they're going to the insight before it's published. They know they're going to be part of the research in some capacity, and they're growing that bit of evidence in the game. So I feel like my role shifted. I'm still doing research, still trying to write books, but also have a gatekeeper role as well to make sure the stuff that certainly we do associate with the ASD is quality, and it's going to have an impact and meaning to the guys that are in the room.
Dan, listening to that, I mean, the body of work that you've just talked about, the Football Collective and the ASD, you should be absolutely super proud of what you've done. As an instigator and a gatekeeper, is there something that you can identify that you've been involved in or facilitated that, has been really meaningful and impactful for the game? Piece of research, discussion, working groups, something like that that's, like I said, been really meaningful and perhaps influenced a club policy or a game policy or a leadership approach? Anything that springs to mind?
There's one that I would hope for, but when we write about government policy and practice and showcase best examples of government policy, we've really tried to influence global policymakers and governments with that work. But I've got no evidence. But I would hope if there was any that I could pick, it would be that to have an impact. But the reality of the impact is organisationally within clubs. My most favourite case study is not my case study. It's not my story to share because it's not published, but we're in a Premier League club supporting a senior leader with their research that I believe reshaped their career, and also the whole investment from the ownership group. That was probably the one I'm most proud of. And this person probably wouldn't know I'll be talking about him like this either. That's quite good. Beyond that, like the work that we've done with our disseminating our research, it might look like one of those discrete papers around organizational structure or organizational networks, but being able to take that on the road and then disseminate it, but in genuine public engagement or change of people that want to improve their own leadership. Like there's countless case studies of people who've changed the way they communicate, changed the reporting line, changing the way they recruit, changed the way they onboard, changed board structures. And I mean countless, Rich. And even most recently, I had someone from a major national member association, based off some of the research I'd shared with him and some of the sessions that we'd done, had reframed his whole relationship with every member of staff, but without showing them the research behind it, but then also revealed with his leader actually what he was seeing and what he was observing and what was evolving. And I think that those types of conversations, when you do get that feedback out the blue, yeah, it blows you away. And it makes you want to do more research. It's different. It makes me want to translate what we know already in better ways. And I feel like as researchers, I'm fortunate to be in good networks, incredible networks that give me that opportunity and believe in some of the work. But I also like, if I see good research, I'll take it on the road. Like if we find good research that'll make a difference in football, I'll take it on the road. I'll make sure we share it and disseminate it in the best possible way if it's going to make a difference for the game, like 100%.
Based on all that sort of impact of taking research on the road, you've also mentioned about governance, strategy, structure. I want to shift it to kind of like leadership behaviors. You're a CEO, you are a consultant. Yes, you're an academic as well, but you know, a lot of what you've talked about is about people. And that's where I want to move the conversation to people skills. What kind of people skills then do you see effective leaders displaying? I suppose what traits, what behaviors are you seeing that allows practical application of all these insights that the research is generating?
I think the first one, I didn't think about this so much, and I tend to, whilst I accept the CEO title and role, I would say I'm very much a CEO by consent. So I would say our members allow me to be CEO, and they have voted with their feet in terms of participating and wanting to be part of what we're doing. It's my job to make sure I'm making the right decisions for them. But when you said CEO in those frames, I do believe it's more of a custodian role rather than an explicit management role. So I'm there to look after the organization for whoever picks it up next. The people that I engage with in different capacities and ability to lead is everything we've spoken about. It still comes down to relationships, but honest relationships, not fabricated. Clearly, we have all this package around us that we've touched on, but relationships would be the hill that I died on, because without them, it's over. With them, there's opportunity. So I would say develop those skills, find the right people, find real people, keep them close, and then fight to protect those ones and protect those relationships. When I approach working with executives, I think football leadership is full of complexity. It's quite ambiguous. These guys are under a lot of pressure, and sporting directors don't have enough support. Chief execs definitely don't have enough support. Huge gap. So when I'm advising these guys, the first thing I do is just listen. Just listen. Try to help them make sense of what they're experiencing. So often they just need that bit of space where someone can listen without an agenda. without an ego, try and work out what really matters, try and find from them what they're trying to achieve, which is not easy, work out what the constraints are, and then work out what they can actually do about it. And sometimes it's realizing you just got to accept this, but you can do something about that. A little bit of that, but also that all that conversation feeds in, okay, well, what's vision, mission, strategy? And then once we've got some of that stuff, we can then talk about how do we go about sharing it, getting people's input into it, putting it into something meaningful, and then thinking about leadership. After all that, you might start to then focus on alignment, where you can really get into your leadership skills, getting people to connect with vision, talking about values, talking about decision making. I wouldn't say it's dumbing things down. I think it's just really listening and taking time to let them get it all out. And then often it's really simple stuff, but some they can change, some they can't. And it's working out how you build something meaningful from that.
You mentioned about you listening to help people, I suppose, to coaching, to help people come up with perhaps their own answers to whatever complex problems that they're trying to deal with in their leadership. Do you think there's anything specific that these people, sporting directors, CEOs in sport, need to perhaps reflect on first? And do you see a lot of these people sort of intentionally doing that, or is it something that you found that you've had to guide people towards?
I think it's a really tricky question because everyone's been brought up pretty much to try and solve and have answers. And even when we're going for jobs, we often need to already really showcase how we'll answer all the problems, answer all the questions, and then take it to a new level, when often I think that really scares people when people come in with all the answers. And also I think it can be foolish because we never really understand what's going on until we're really in the trenches of an organization. One of the biggest lessons I would say from the academic stuff and consultancy work isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating environments where you can get to good questions, where things can be asked and shared, where you can speak to people so better decisions can be made. In sport, by the nature of the business, leaders can know when there's opportunity to slow that down just enough to think a little bit more clearly, to involve others, align values and actions. That would be a long way. Now, you can't do that all the time, but it's knowing that people know you have a capacity as a leader to do that. So when you don't, they understand that things need to be done. I think the other thing that I think is really big is this idea of reflection. I think it's just about thinking, giving time and space for people to think, not just about what they're doing, but why they're doing it. The self-awareness, understanding their purpose, understanding and reflecting on their ability to trust. Like, I think there's a lot of work to be done within teams to do that. And then finally, it would be remiss, like, on that, this aspect of it is like, also, if you think about what I believe about the importance of your network, and if you can accept some of that as a leader, then you really need to think about who is around you. And that's not to say I go in and say, oh, you need me around you. Quite often, it's about really thinking about what their skills and capabilities are, what their network is, and who they need to fill gaps. And then getting those people who can challenge and support and advise and stretch, but in really purposeful ways. Now, you don't need to listen to them. It's just about taking it on and maybe giving more confidence or reassurance. But sometimes a reinvention of your idea might happen too, these networks. So I think that's really beneficial.
Interesting. All skills that sing back and are interwoven to where you started this conversation. Thinking about the industry then and the future direction of football and sport per se, you know, you're someone at the sort of intersection, like we mentioned, of research, policy, performance. What trends beyond what we've already covered do you think will shape the next decade of the business of football?
For me, when I really thought about this, Rich, and I have, because, you know, I've said to you that I didn't want to do a podcast. I didn't like to talk because I've done too much talking in my career. I need to shut up and spend more time learning. One of the things that I think is this still growing professionalization, and then this integration of different areas. So even this conversation, if it's research, policy and performance, like, those are no longer siloed. So how do I see that manifest from my experiences? When the Premier League brought the case against Everton around the profit and sustainability rules, I was fortunate to be asked to be an expert witness on the Everton side. So that job then is to then bring together everything that we've talked about. How do you bring together all your research insights, all your governance, your player trading research, your understanding multi-club ownership groups. Then also bring some of your understanding of health and ecosystems together when you're looking at problems such as COVID and how that might impact player trading. And then bring together your football experience from player trading, from recruiting managers, from supporting sporting directors, sporting chief execs, from being around these guys and supporting their response to such a crisis too. And really, and I remember when COVID happened, I was also a football club at a football game and remembered when people said, well, we can't shake hands tonight. We can't touch anyone tonight. And it was quite funny because we didn't know what was happening. So to go from that situation to then trying to bring all these stuff together and sharpen it to be useful for that case was not only a massive challenge, but also the best learning experience of my life, because then I got a greater insight into how things operate from a governance, regulatory, a legal, and football perspective. And it was much more rewarding than any piece of research, my PhD blew everything away. But though that says to me is that football has changed and the people have changed. And that means we need new networks, we need new insights, and we need new connection across those areas. That goes directly down to how we recruit players and the decisions that we make. It goes all the way up to strategy and governance and ownership. So hopefully those join the dots there from what I'm saying, and it doesn't sound too disjointed, but this idea of things being siloed has got to go. Leaders need to be connected and informed and networked with these areas. And I think the only final one I would say with that, people often use this for data. They say, oh, for data plays a huge role, which it does, but don't think we need to be collecting more data. I think we just need to be translating what we know better. How do we get better ways of translating the data to create more informed decisions at a really professional, logical, reasonable board level? That's the biggest opportunity. And that's the future football clubs will be the best at that. Removing silos from all these traditional and new departments and then translating and communicating the data as a really effective leadership team.
Do you think, based on that, removing silos, that genuine progress is being made amongst football/sport leadership? Or do you think organizations are pretty underprepared for this?
I think at the very top of an organization, the best organizations, I think the owners and ownership groups are really well unsiloed. They're really well at connecting with the right people, and they have the resources and networks to get the right information. So the best owners, investors are doing this. I think where we've got the next opportunity or real big shift moment is an emphasis on like leadership and human capital across an organization. So I still think that is a huge underutilized aspect of underutilized area of work within clubs. So clubs that will thrive over these periods will be the ones that have not just the boards and ownership group that are already in this system, but those that just aren't investing in players, but investing in people, staff, culture, learning environments, all the stuff that connects with being the best leadership environments we can be aware of. I'm passionate about that because I can see how it can change people's lives. I can see how you can help people be a better leader. You can change people's day to day. And it might sound a bit trite, but actually when you do make an impact and you can see that people are enjoying their lives more because they've got a better, more informed leader that's more engaged with the staff, more belonging, more connectedness, better relationships. It feels good. And that's sometimes that's the impact that you need for them to be able to focus on really getting the job done and really doing a better job. So bringing together some of the things we talked about, I think we can develop leadership. I think we can develop that across the board within our organization. And that's where the transformation is in the future. So we've really got to take care of them.
Just to wrap this up then, Dan, is there kind of one action that sport organizations should take today, I suppose, to improve the long-term health of their organization?
Yeah, I think strategically work out what you're trying to do. Be honest about it. Try and get people on board of that strategy within your organization. If you can't do that, or you feel like it's not right, then just focus on your relationship and communication skills. And within your club, just double down on that, looking after your people, giving them space. But if we can go for the big stuff, if we can get the plan sorted out and let that feed in first to the rest of the organisation, that would be incredible.
Dan, I really appreciate your time today and all the information that you shared with me and obviously the listeners dialing into this. If people wanted to connect with you, network with you, where can they find you and explore your work and perhaps, engaging in the networks that you've built?
So if you were this way inclined, I'm easy to find online, but however, like the less accessible I've ever been in my life, which is really unfortunate right now for things that I want to do and people that I want to help. And for those aspiring football leaders, the association's a great place to go to learn from. I would really look for people that were connected to me and people that you see with me, because they'll probably offer better value, better insights and better opportunities than me. Spirit of this, and there's plenty of amazing people that I work with on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis.
Very apt answer, Dan. Nice way to wrap it up. So once again, thank you for giving me your time today and obviously sharing all that information that you've built up over the course of a fantastic multifaceted career. So thanks again, Dan. Really appreciate that.
Thanks very much, Rich. Really valued the opportunity and loved having a chat with you. Well, I'll start my questions now, Rich, for you.
Take care. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you for listening. I'll include more info about the guest and the topics covered in the show notes. Visit sportspundit.co to find previous editions of the podcast, access the newsletter, and sign up for our WhatsApp group to see upcoming social events in cities around the world. See you again soon.